Hello and welcome to this edition of Ritter's Rant. Today I'm going to be focusing on the concept of peace through strength. This, of course, is the mantra of the Trump administration, of the president himself. Peace through strength. He campaigned for president on a platform of peace. He lulled the Americans into a false sense of complacency, believing that he was sincere about pursuing rapid peaceful outcomes in Ukraine, in Gaza, in the Middle East as a whole. We were told that this man was going to resolve the Ukraine conflict in 24 hours. Now, we all knew that it was unrealistic, but we at least expected some sort of concerted effort to responsibly engage with the parties involved, including the Russians, to bring about conflict termination. Gaza, we were told that thing's going to end. I mean, and indeed, even before the president was sworn in, because of his intervention, there was a ceasefire in Gaza. But almost immediately, once the president became president, we saw the Israelis violate it, saying that was the agreement they had with this president all along, which means he was lying to us when he said he wanted peace in Gaza. They wanted to bring an end to that conflict. He was just buying time for the Israelis to do what the Israelis do best, continue their policies of genocide, to murder more Palestinians, to carry out wars of aggression. In Iran was the ultimate deception. You see, he didn't just deceive the American people when he said back in September of 2024 that he wasn't seeking regime change in Iran, that he felt that we could live a normal relationship with Iran, that there was a deal to be had. He wanted a new, better deal with Iran on the nuclear agreement, and that's what he was going to pursue. But we find out is actually he was working with the Israelis to use the perception of peace as subterfuge for creating the conditions of war. I mean, the Israelis did launch a surprise attack against the Iranians without any justification under international law, and it appears that the president went along with this. After all, one doesn't use the term "we" lightly when speaking of Israeli actions against Iran. That means that we, Israel and the United States, were involved in this. This was the deception. This man doesn't want peace. He only wants strength. Peace was a subterfuge. But here's the kicker. If you're going to basically define your administration's national security posture on the notion of peace through strength, and you're going to totally disregard the possibility of peace, you better damn well be strong, because you're going to get a lot of conflict. But what we found out with this president is there is no strength. Yes, the United States of America possesses considerable military power, but that military power must be linked with decisive leadership in order for it to actually be meaningful. But when instead it's linked to a narcissistic egomaniac who only cares about himself and not the nation, who puts the interests of his legacy above the national security interests of the United States, what happens on every occasion so far is that he will back down, because a narcissist, an egomaniac who's not willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. For instance, when we are talking about sending American forces into war, we are talking about asking men and women to die for their country. So what we need is a political leader who understands the consequences of his or her action and is willing to pay the price, because a determination has been made that there is an issue out there that requires the potential shedding of American blood to seek a resolution. So what price is the president willing to pay? And the answer is no price at all. None whatsoever. Because the man is a moral coward, a physical coward, an intellectual coward. So peace through strength is an absolute fallacy. We aren't strong on Ukraine because we can't confront the Russians decisively, not that I'm encouraging us to do so, but we also can't confront our European allies decisively. We can't confront the Ukrainians decisively. Look at the disingenuous manner in which this president has dealt with Ukraine. He won't come out and say what needs to be said, which is we will no longer support this conflict against Russia. This war was started by Zelensky. This war is the fault of Ukraine, and therefore Ukraine must terminate this conflict on terms acceptable to Russia. That is the policy of the United States. We're washing our hands of Ukraine. That would be strength. He can't turn to NATO saying that you have jumped into this conflict. You've now defined your very existence predicated on the need for conflict, and America's not going for that. That if NATO insists on going down this path, it will do so without the United States. That would be strength. But instead, this president leads the Ukrainians into believing that there is somehow a magic deal, the precious metals deal, or the earth deal, where Ukraine was sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars that could be turned into weapons, that the United States would provide the weapons to continue this conflict. We're not going to provide anything. It was a lie. That we've told the Ukrainians that, we'll back the Europeans. We may not be involved, but we'll work with the Europeans. We're not going to work with the Europeans. It was a lie. But then we told the Russians that we were going to negotiate with them, sit down with them, work to improve relations. But no, that was a lie too. Donald Trump ended those negotiations. Why? Because he's not man enough to deal with the consequences of his actions. Peace through strength. There is no strength, and now there's no peace. The same thing in Gaza. But the place that it really rubs me raw is Iran. Because Iran is a problem that the United States have been wrestling with for decades. And we know the reality of Iran. And we also know who's to blame for the tension between the United States and Iran, and that's Israel. And we know that Israel has not been an honest broker in its relationships with Iran. We know that the Iranian nuclear crisis is a manufactured crisis. We've known for over 2 decades that Iran is not pursuing a nuclear weapon. We've been monitoring Iran through the International Atomic Energy Agency, and we know that Iran doesn't want a nuclear weapon. And yet we've allowed Israel to manufacture a case for an illegal war of aggression predicated on the existence of an Iranian nuclear weapons program that we know doesn't exist. We don't have the strength to stand up to Israel and say not just no, but hell no. Instead, the coward goes behind the scenes, cooks up a secret deal with Israel to launch a surprise attack while we are negotiating with the Iranians. That's not peace through strength. That's perfidy. That's cowardism. That's a disgrace. And that's what this president is. This whole notion of peace through strength actually weakens America. Because if he was honest and said, we will be strong because we pursue war, maybe the American people wouldn't have voted him into office, but at least he would be honest about what he's about. But even here, he can't be honest, because if we're going to be strong through the pursuit of war, then go to war, damn it. But this president can't go to war because he's a coward. He doesn't have what it takes to go to war. He tried to confront the Houthi in Yemen and was compelled to back down. The United States of America packed its bags and ran away from the Houthi, not because the Houthi are cowards. No, they're very brave fighters. It's because we don't have what it takes to finish the job, because the job isn't worth finishing, because this job was about the prestige of Donald Trump. And the moment the going got tough, Donald Trump got going. And that's where we are today as America. Peace through strength? There isn't peace through strength. America is weak, not because America is weak, but because its leadership is weak. And as a result, instead of peace, we get war. War in Ukraine, war in Gaza, and now war with Iran. That's my rant, and I'll see you the next time bad thoughts cross my mind.